when when you talk about the need to measure impact and so on and so forth, I always find it powerful to reiterate that we tend to do so much of our work in Haiti tends to be focused around relief instead of development. And relief just in getting things out the door and helping people where the systems have broken down. And development is a very different conversation. It's about developing systems that we use to hold our society together, be that an education system or a road system or the electrical system or a water system or whatever. These are services that we decide to create, invest in, and create for our communities that allow our society to function better, smoother, faster, healthier, whatever, right? And relief efforts occur when those systems break down. And I think that it's important to keep that distinction in existence because when you talk about measuring things over time, you're really talking about creating systems and developing those systems is what you're trying to do. And so mWater is a tool for creating systems and helping you monitor stuff, right? I'm going to share my screen. Again, I apologize being a little ad hoc because I didn't have a lot of time to prepare this, but
The fact that you
mWater
have
itself.
any slides, the fact that you have any slides, Neil, already is impressive, given that you have like, you know,
So
12
I'll
hours
just go through it.
notice.
Guys, if you have a question, it's not a flowing presentation, so you're not going to disrupt my flow. Just ask a question if you have it.
All right.
But mWater and Chris mentioned Solstice are really the same thing in the background. They're just two different skins of looking at it. But mWater or Solstice are both platforms for collecting and visualizing information. And there's two parts to it. One is called an app called Surveyor that works on the iPhone and Android and on the web create and collect data. And Surveyor can be found on the link here, or you can find it in the App Store on Google. The second part of it is a portal that's on your web browser that's used to create surveys, authorizations, approve submittals, and create visualization. So these are think of it as just any place that you would use a paper form. It's a form that you could enter on your phone. And it's used all over the world. It's a free service that's used all over the world. This map shows all the places in the world that it's used. Uh, I can't remember how many countries, but close to 200 countries. There it is, 200 countries. By governments, NGOs, people in academia, students, and so on and so forth. And it's really a unique tool because it's a little bit like Google Forms or a database. It's a little bit like Excel for cleaning and looking at data. It's a little bit like ArcGIS for spatial analysis of data. Uh, it's a tool for creating dashboards and visualizations. And it's a little bit like QuickBooks too for using it for fee collection and invoicing. People use it all over the world for maintenance tracking, emergency response, invoicing, regular reporting, and data collection. And we ourselves have used it in Haiti to create a national inventory of water points, over 67,000 water points, tracking their functionality, potability, management framework, and so on and so forth. We're slowly registering household sanitation as we go across the country. There's about 50,000 houses that have been registered so far. And we use it to build systems that help support local authorities and help those local authorities in the planning process, creating action plans for their commune and so on and so forth. So this is what that looks like. This is a dashboard. This is a console actually inside of mWater. Consoles are merely a set of dashboards. You can see up here at the top is it says Frappe Overview. This is one tab. Think of it like a tab in the browser. And each one of these is a dashboard. And I can click on each one of these and look at different dashboards of data that's available that Haiti Outreach has collected over the years. And so this is one we created as a country overview. Uh, we've we began this effort and we tracked about a third of the country and then worked with the government to gather information on every single water point in the country of Haiti. So every spring, every water fountain, every well, every water system is registered now in mWater. You can see there's over 60,000 points. And this map, because every data point that's collected is captured with a date tag and a GPS tag. So we can spatially locate every water point, and you can zoom in on this map and see every individual water point. And so by defining what we talk about and what we want to measure, we can visualize each water point. And this is a water point is at the center of each circle, and there is a 500-meter radius around the outside. And that's because we use the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals for our framework, which means if people walk less than 500 meters to a water point, then they have access. All these black dots are the houses in Haiti, so we can see a concentration of houses. I can click on this point and see the data that was collected. I can see a visual map of where it is. I can see pictures of the water point itself. I can see what data was collected, when the last time it was visited. This was last visited in 2016, in September of 2016. And I can see the individual survey responses that were collected for it. I can also, we can also set it up to count how many black dots fall inside of this. So we can use it, we use it to measure how many houses have access to this water point. This is a good example of the kind of graphs. This one shows 29% of them are boreholes, 25% are piped water systems, 9% are springs, and so on and so forth. We use it, we create other layers inside of ArcGIS and upload those so that we can visualize where water points need to happen and use this as a planning tool. So this is actually the commune of Pion, and one of the things that we know we need to create is focusing on creating water systems. So where you have rural communities, you can create a water point and have them build latrines and so on and so forth. But when you start to get into more urban concentrated areas, you want to build a water system. So the Pion water system right now is in this area right here. It covers this set of houses in here. But we can see that the density of houses is pretty dense along the road here. So as we talk about expanding the network of Pion, that should be expanded along this road because there is a concentration of houses that go there. So we use it to manage the Pion water network itself. So this is a list of all the customers for the Pion water system. We've used that to transform the Pion water supply to a 24-hour water supply. So every home in Pion has access to a pressurized chlorinated water service with a water meter 24 hours a day. And these are their customers, and each customer gets a bill every month. This is inside mWater that does that. So we use it to create a bill. They get their meter reading and so on and so forth. What else do we use it for? We use it to track meetings. We use it to every meeting that we have, every community meeting, over 20,000 community meetings have occurred, and we track that in mWater. This is some community information. This is a housing census being done by an individual community, and if I want, I can look at this community or that community and see how many men and how many boys and how many girls, and so on and so forth. So our guys do this in the field and enter all the data on their phone. This is also, one of the communities or one of the communes we work in the south, down in Cavaillon. And each one of these here, this line, each one of these lines is one of the community managed water points that we've created. So each one of these communities every month opens their phone, puts in their report and it shows up here. So I can see at a glance that Roche Del Mar didn't provide a report for 6 months this year, but has been doing it for the last 4 months. And I can see how much I can just whatever information I want to extract from that. I can see that Bricout didn't provide a report for October 2024. I can see aggregated information. So this summarizes that the 8 individual communities in Cavaillon have totally provided 254 reports altogether. They've collected over 500,000 goods towards the maintenance of their water supplies. And they have savings right now of over 345,000 goods. That means that they have money available to buy repair parts and so on and so forth. And that's just one of the things that we track. What else do we use? There's people that use it for everything, man. Anything that you want to track. We helped in one of the schools, the national schools in Pion, we created a committee to manage water and sanitation at one of the public schools. That committee created a budget to ensure that there was toilet paper and tampons available for the girls, soap and water to wash hands. And so we said, well, that's great. We want to track that. They collected money from the parents to buy all this materials. And then this is a list of all their reports. I can see that they've provided a report every month for a whole year now, October 14th, October 20th, so on and so forth. That they didn't from May to October. But each one of these reports, I can click on any one of those reports and I can see where they were standing when they registered their report. They upload pictures of the school. They say, here's their bucket for washing hands, and there's a little piece of soap on top. I can see this piece of soap on top of it. I can see the water available for drinking water in the school. I can see the latrine, a picture of the inside of the latrine to make sure it's close, that there's toilet paper. They sent a picture of the tampons that are available for the girls in the director's office. A picture of the yard. But the coolest part of it is that when they do their inspections every week, they take one of the students along with them. And that student then writes a letter out that says, basically says, I walked with the committee to validate and ensure that all this stuff is available. And they take a picture of themselves with the letter. I can see that it was dated 15 March. And they have her picture as a witness. So she, as a schoolgirl, validated that this was that. And I can see her letter corresponds with the date that the report was uploaded to mWater. So they use this, their local committee uses this to manage and track everything that they have going on. Oh, there's a ton of information there. Haiti Outreach has done pretty much our whole workflow. Now we do using mWater. You can go on the website and you can create a survey. Let me do that quickly. There's a standard set of questions that correspond to, if you want to go to a website, I'll go to surveys and show you there's simple surveys here. But this is one that was created by our team as part of work we're doing with sanitation. And you basically just type in your question and decide what kind of question you want to have. This is an outline of the questionnaire. For everything, you can get GPS coordinates. You can have them pick it using a map. You can have them take pictures. You can have conditional responses that you create. And this whole survey was created in English, but you can pick the languages. You can create translations of languages. And visualize this. I can see all the responses that have come in on this one or that one. I don't know. It kind of depends on you guys what you'd want to see. But there's so much data. We do our drilling reports that way. We do our pump test reports that way. every meeting that our team does, they register who's present, they take a picture of it. The agenda of the meeting, the time and date, the GPS coordinates, you can capture all this information in the background and have it be available instantly. It works offline. So we've had people out, you guys who work in the Northeast, one of the towns up there is called Valier. It's way up in the mountains. And when they were collecting the water points, they disappeared. We could see the data points coming in until they got to Valier, and then there was nothing. And for like 7 or 8 days, and then all of a sudden everything started popping up. Well, the phone, you can register these on your phone, even though you don't have internet service. And when you do get to internet service, it will upload all those automatically. So it works offline, works on any smartphone that can run on WhatsApp. So I'll stop there, let you guys ask questions. So if you want me to help you think about how you could track things like that, Jane was on here. Think about having your midwives provide reports in mWater, right? As they do that, they just say, okay, there was a birth here, there was a birth here. It would just automatically spatially capture where they were when they submitted the report. You could have pictures of the equipment or the baby itself, the weight of the baby, anything. You can create that survey form in English, translate it into Creole, and it'll show up as English for you and Creole for them. You can do it in French. You can do it in any language.
Yeah, it sounds very cool. No doubt. I'm quite interested. I'm always trying to find ways to streamline it because we still use a lot of paper. Because we don't have internet out at some of our centers. But I definitely see the value.
But you don't need internet. It works
Yeah,
with
that's
just
that's
regular,
what caught my interest.
yeah,
But I'm
it
saying
works with
that's
just regular cell
just
phone.
explaining why we still seem to be stuck in the 19th century.
Yeah, so I mean, when you start thinking about how you can do it and what you can track, there's no limit, and that's why mWater created what Chris mentioned. It's called Solstice to keep it. They created this to use for mWater and tracking water points, but folks like us, we've used it for so many more things. We use it for tracking meetings and everything else. Uh, there is Wash and Healthcare's app. What's it called? Wash Fit, that was created by the UN, and they use for evaluating clinics, for instance. So the individual users can register the clinics. For the water system, we have a technician on it, and every day he registers the water meter reading for the water network and which sectors of the network are online. So every day we have a report on that, and I can see spatially which parts of the network are operating, which ones aren't. If there's a leak, it shows up as a map, and I can see spatially which street the leak was on and a picture of it and his estimate of how big it was and how long it took to fix. So it enables us to manage our teams and our impact over time.
So Neil, I do have a question in regard to so you mentioned about specific water points and obviously being able to know and locate and be able to register them. And so I'm just kind of looking at, you talked about creating and collecting data and having aspects of visualization. So in this data, in your organization right now, what is the most important thing that you think it's driving you to do as a result of what you've learned from all this stuff? So from your mission. And I think the other thing too is you talk about systems, right? So based upon your mission and your purpose of the organization, so you're out there trying to get these individual points to collect in such a way where they're no longer isolated, but now we have knowledge about what's going on. And so you can also create water systems. And I'm interested in some of those water systems that you've created, that now that you're responsible for the people maintaining, and do you do other things like, for example, is there a specific metrics and you guys use for understanding how much cubic water flow is coming out of some of these things? How much water are you actually using or pulling out? And as a result of using this water, where's it going back? Do you have septic systems that you are tied into, and how do you manage these septic systems, right? That's not
Yeah.
leaching back into the rivers. And so anyway, you're just opening up a, Pandora box, but Pandora box has the very last thing is hope, right? So that's what I like about Pandora box is the very last thing is hope.
Right, right. Give me a second here. I have another console that I'm pulling up here. So yeah, great questions. Great questions. And it's really wonderful how data drives decision making, right? And so how do you use that? That's the very core of systems building, right? And we all do it. We all want to be systems, right? We want to know, we want to have feedback when this arrives there or this or that, right? That's why we have tracking numbers for our packages and so on and so forth. And when when you look at these water points, one of the things that we did, we said there's a couple of things. We basically set a definition out that said there's a couple of things we want to know about the water points. We want to know that it's functioning, right? We want to know who's in charge of it, that it's responsibly managed. We need to know that it's clean, that the water itself is potable, and when was the last time somebody inspected it. And so when we went out to collect the data, we collected it with that in mind, and this helps us visualize that data. And on this map, you can see the various colors. The colors here show all the green circles are clean, functioning, potable water points. All the yellow ones are broken, and all the red ones are contaminated with E. coli. Right?
Mm.
You can see precious little green here. But even me, when I looked at that, I was like, holy smokes, where in the heck do you even start with this conversation, right? I mean, it's just so overwhelming. And when we talk about systems, I said, well, the first level of authority is actually the mayor. So why don't we just talk about it with the mayor of Circa Cavajal, which is near where Jane is in Hench? Well, now I've gone from 60 or 70,000 water points down to about 200. And that's a whole lot easier conversation to have with the mayor. And the first thing the mayor wanted to know is, this is where my grandmother lives. Is that water point clean? And when he saw it wasn't clean, he was like, we got to get that fixed. Right? So it drives action. This is data that drives action. And Chris showed up in the Northeast, this actually aggregates that data. This map on this side aggregates that. So we actually count how many houses have access and how many don't. And this color codes it. So there's a huge range. So MySod, which is also next to Jane, I can tell now based on the data that only 991 houses, 6% of the commune of MySod has access to clean water within 500 meters of their house. And that's very, very different than up here in, say, True de Nord, where Haiti Outreach did a bunch of work with the mayor, and now 92% of the houses fall inside a green circle. Right? So when I'm trying to decide where to work, it's all well and good that I have a friend and that friend lives in Limonade and I work there because I have a friend there in Limonade. But, what's necessary in Limonade? Limonade's in pretty good shape, right? If I look at Limonade, 75% of the houses fall inside a green circle in Limonade, right? People may not have water at their house, but they've got access to water. That's very different than MySod. And when we look at Pion, you can see the colors change in Pion. This is Pion here in the middle of the map. There's very little red in Pion. Most of the houses in Pion have access. Wanamint is another town that has a ton of access. Nearly everybody in Wanamint has access to clean water. Almost no red circles in Wanamint. Verrier. The Northeast is in pretty good shape. You can see based on this map. So yeah, how do you do that? How do you do that? How do you have these conversations with the mayor and so on and so forth? So we do this, right? So we lay this over and we can see with the mayor, for instance, that look right here is a community that doesn't have access to water. Look at all these houses here and these houses here. So we can start to draw circles on the map that are very data driven, right? It just says, okay, this is where we have to do the work, right? It's not just because, you know, Chris called me and says they need water, but there's actually data that supports whether they have access or not.
So this is great. So like I have a question here. So the people who don't have access water, so as a history, what have they done? Okay. When you talk about someone who not having access to water, so what did they do in order to get access? Did they have to go to another point to get access? Or do they have water?
Yeah, they're alive, right? Yeah, it's a great question. So they're alive. So obviously they're getting water from somewhere, right? And if you want to look at where they're getting water from, well, you can look at all the water points here, right? When I zoom in on this map, and this includes all the springs and everything else. So there are people that don't have access to a specific water point. Some of these are maybe getting water from a creek or a stream or something like that, but here's a whole host of houses that have no access at all. So they're walking more than 500 meters,
Okay.
right? That's what that means. It's not like they don't get water at all. It just means they have to walk farther than that. It could mean that they have a cistern at their house and they're collecting roof rainwater from the roof, and so on and so forth, right? But what's interesting about this is that this is a raster map. The yellow and red is a raster map that we created. So when you look at the red areas, these are 1 square kilometer squares. So inside that, if it's red, that means there's more than 100 houses in that 1 square kilometer. The yellow is between 25 and 100, and the white is fewer than 25 houses. So when you look at the country, 94 or 96% of the houses fall inside a red or a yellow square. All the white together is 4% of the country. Now, we tend to focus on that last mile. We spend all our resources trying to get to these houses out here where there's nobody, nobody taking care of them and so on and so forth. And we spend 90% of our resources getting to that last mile and ignore where most of the effort could have an impact. Right?
Yes.
And so what happens is everybody focuses on the last mile and nobody builds any systems at all that help support the most dense population areas. Right? We're all standing where the government is lacking. I was pulling up another map here, the water system tracking. So on the management, this is part of the management report that gets out to the team every month. And so I can look and say, last month in November 2024, they sold 500,000 gallons of water. And the average usage per house was 1,500 gallons. There was 417 homes. And here's the list of all the houses that had water. And at the bottom, this is a map. This tracks which water meters have more than 3 months, which water meters were read this month or not read this month. So I can see that in November, there was only one that didn't get read. 2, 3, 4. It goes all the way to the bottom. It aggregates it at the bottom. So for the month, there was 9 water meters that didn't get read out of all of them. Right? I told you that the technician uses that. Here's the water meter reading for the water system. This is the distribution meter on the water cistern. This is his report. He had some phone issues here, but I can go back in time and see which sectors were offline. There was a generator issues in this little time frame in the beginning of October. It was online all this time. This was a pipe break. So if a pipe breaks, they register that area as offline and bring it back on. Uh, I mean,
Yeah, this is interesting because I was in Peon during the October time frame, and some of the people that I've talked with said they were, even though they were on part of the water system, they weren't getting any water. And
yeah,
so
there was a problem in
they were
October.
complaining about, wait a minute now, we're paying for this and we're not getting any water or whatever. And so there's,
Well, so the way the water system in Peon is set up is that they only pay for the water they've already used, right? They tend to think of like they're paying in advance and not getting water, but they're actually paying in arrears. They've used the water and this is what they owe, right? So it helps, those kind of things help us structure the conversation. So I don't want to dominate your entire call, but there's a lot of things that can be done with mWater. I'm more than happy to answer as many questions as you want, but
Well, I have a quick one, which is where'd you get, what's the homes overlay that you
the
have?
overlay,
Yeah, where's that from? Because I know I don't know if that was your data or if that's in that public
yeah,
file.
that's
That's
a
a
good
great
question.
overlay.
For every dot is a house. So
Yeah,
basically, when we decided that, we started doing it. We mapped about a third of the country. We pulled up Google Maps and then clicked a dot on every house that came up.
okay.
We trained a
Wow.
couple guys to do that. We got about a third of the country done, and then found out that the government had that as a layer that we could purchase. Yeah. Um, yeah, so there's a GIS, that data is probably easily uh, 10 or 12 years old now. So
Okay.
it's not intended as a Bible. It's intended as a guide. It's just intended to help guide your decision making. So
Mhm.
all that stuff data is only good as however recent it
Right.
is, right? So when I look at something that was done in 2016, obviously it still can be powerful, but it doesn't mean as much when I say it was 8 years ago was the last time somebody said that while was operational. So regular inspections is part of the system framework that you got to put in, right? It's one thing to say it worked 10 years ago, but was it working last month when Mark was there, right?
yeah.
All
So,
news.
I mean, this is great. I mean, I appreciate all the, this is really, really good. It's helpful to me to see more of a extensive collaborative kind of overall, there's actually technology that's there that allows you to do a lot more than what initially people were looking at. And so this
Right.
is really impressive, Neil. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, well, there's a lot more behind that. The communities track how much money they collect, which houses collect, which ones don't collect, and so on and so forth. So there's reams and reams of data. So, uh,
So you guys have been using this for how long?
since 2015,
Okay.
we
Um,
evaluated about 30 different frameworks for doing that. They had the Google Forms. There was a one called Fulcrum. There was one COBOL or something like that. There's a whole bunch of them out there, but we ultimately settled back then on mWater uh, to do that because it was free. It's free to use, and anybody can just log in. You create your own user account, start creating a survey, push it out to whoever. There's data validation. There's all kinds of controls in the background with allowing you to manage your data and control who has access to it. So we have people's phone numbers in there, people's ID numbers in there. So there's a lot of ways that you can manage privacy if you're a data nut. But yeah,
Oh, I truly appreciate you bringing in and sharing. And if people are interested, I'd like to continue on and maybe show you a little bit about. He's given you what a group that's really put it into highly developed. I'm going to show you what the newbies have stumbled through in the last year. We really came to the realization that we were measuring things like we built 20 houses, ta-da, and put this many people were living there. And that's what we knew. But we didn't track a lot of things. One of the pieces that uh, may not be as connected or as clear from what Neil did is the capacity to connect data to points. So if you don't mind, if you want to, if anybody has questions, that's first. If there's questions for Neil, I don't know if you got time to stay with us the whole bit, or if we just want to take care of any questions anyone else has for Neil before I'll show you a little bit of how we've begun to look at adapting it to look at things that are beyond just water. Does anyone have other questions for Neil?
Nope.
All right. Well, Neil, thank you very much. And you are certainly welcome to stay. You're certainly welcome to come back on any one of these. Really, the whole goal of this group is to continue to help each other do better work. And sometimes one of us has a nugget of knowledge, the other one doesn't. And it's real helpful. And I appreciate everything you just showed us there.